police kill everybody. White,
right.
black, it doesn't matter. Like, I mean, even if you go on like pure numbers, more white people get killed. And a lot of times people that come from that community will say, oh, well, then why are you complaining? On the flip side of that, I'm saying, why aren't you mad?
Right.
So many people are getting killed. There's so many people are getting killed. So that's what we really need to start doing, is realizing how interrelated all these issues are and really come together and uplift these stories.
What up? It's Dramos, and this is the recap. Of course, as I do each and every week, breaking down some of the biggest headlines from this last week. Hopping on in just a little bit to help me out, I have a very special guest. He is running for Congress. He is a congressional candidate for California's 38th district. My guy, Sylvester Ani Jr. He'll be hopping on in just a little bit to tackle all that's going on in this crazy world that we live in right now. But first, let's get to some of the BS from this last week. Now, I'm going to keep this a bit light, and it's more of just a ridiculous story. But can we talk about people being overly woke? Like, yeah, I get it. It was, helpful, and it still is helpful to be conscious of people's feelings and how we traditionally might have been using different slurs or using, different verbiage or ideas that were harmful to certain groups of people. And that's all amazing to be aware of that. But at some point, an overcorrection is going to happen, and people are going to be battling for the gold medal in the woke Olympics. And I think it's safe to say the competition has happened, and taking home that crown, standing proud and tall, wearing that gold medal necklace around her neck for the woke Olympics, it goes to Demi Lovato. Have you seen this story, this quote from her that's been making its rounds over the last week? So Demi Lovato was doing an interview with E! News, and she was asked about aliens and extraterrestrials, UFOs, all that kind of stuff. And then she went on to say, and I quote, "My fans should know that I do not call them aliens, because alien is a derogatory term for anything, even extraterrestrials, which is why I call them ETs." What the f***? Is this really the world that we're living in? Like, I am all about inclusivity. I'm all about speaking out and correcting the horrible history that we see in this country of people just having hate in their hearts and not being inclusive to people who may be different than them. But we don't even know if aliens are real, if extraterrestrials, if you will. We don't even know if they exist, yet we are concerned about what might be offensive to them. What? Like, Demi Lovato is striking me as that person who, went through her life kind of maybe being like the uncool kid throughout school, right? And then all of a sudden, she kind of started finding herself hanging out with the popular kids, and it feels really good. And also, I'd like to preface by saying this is not me kind of taking away from her trauma, because she seems to have experienced some real life stuff, right? And it seems like she's finally found a home in sort of this progressive community that she is a part of. But it seems like she probably doesn't really believe in all that she's talking about, and she is just going with what she thinks this new friend group would love, right? This new popular group of friends that she finds herself a part of, and she's constantly trying to maybe prove her coolness to this group of friends. Like they bring up, oh, have you heard the new song from so-and-so? And she hasn't heard it. She's never heard of that artist. But she pretends and like, oh my God, I love them. They're the best, right? And just the kind of trail continues. Then she has to go do some back research on that group to actually back it up. And she's just putting on this sort of front the entire time to impress this new, group of friends that she is now a part of. And that's what this feels like. She is now kind of gotten a lot of, I think, admiration at first when coming out and being honest about some of her past history. And people were very supportive of that and supportive of her, taking a stance about how she identifies as herself. But now it feels like the theatrics are coming along, It's kind of like when a company likes to have, a diversity officer, right? And they talk about inclusion, how important it is in their company, you know? And then you look at their board and it's just a bunch of white people and you realize, oh, they're just following a trend of talking points that they feel like they should be talking about in 2021. And it feels like Demi Lovato is doing a bit of that performative art that we're seeing right there. And Demi, you're great just the way you are. You don't have to put on an act for these cool kids to like you, okay? Let's kind of come back down to reality, take a deep breath, and realize what the hell we're talking about. These are things that we don't even know if they're real, right? Aliens, I mean, as much as I'm a believer, even I have to sit here and say, this is absolutely ridiculous to be thinking about how they identify themselves and if they might be offended by our usage of the word alien. Let's get it together. And this is a message for America as well. Actions like this, statements like this, take away from all of the movements that we are trying to have in this country where real conversations are happening about why calling an immigrant an alien is actually truly offensive in this country, why it is detrimental to people's mental health and overall well-being to sit here and trans shame, to sit here and shame anyone from the LGBTQ plus community and use homophobic slurs that have been long the norm in this country. All of that stuff is very real and very much relevant and worth fighting for. But what happens when you start crossing that woke line, you begin to take down all of those movements with you. So, Demi, we just want you to be yourself, okay? And hopefully yourself lives here on planet Earth, where the feelings of extraterrestrials, or ETs as you like to call them, here on planet Earth, we have bigger things to worry about than how they feel. I'm just saying. Now, with that said, let's bring on my guest for this week. Help me break down some of the other big headlines that have been happening. He is a congressional candidate for California's 38th district. My guy, Sylvester Ani Jr. How you feeling, bro? It's good to see you.
I'm living, man. How are you?
Yo, I can't complain, bro. I mean, it's beautiful to see the progress right now, though. I gotta say with you, taking this step towards actually making a difference and not just being somebody who talks about all that's wrong. You know what I'm saying? So first and foremost, salute to you for doing this.
And I appreciate that. Like I told you back in the summer, those conversations we were having, really, IG Live really inspired a lot of people, not just myself. So, part of this is thanks to you. So salute.
I appreciate that, bro. That's definitely one of the better things I've heard throughout the course of my career to hear that, anything I did inspired somebody to run for Congress, man, which is something else. But let's dive into it, bro, because it's a lot. Let's kind of start when it comes to the Democratic Party, which is a bit of a mess right now. I think regardless of what side of the aisle you fall on, if you have a conscience, you would admit that the Democratic Party is a bit of a mess right now. And I say that focusing on Biden's Build Back a Better plan and the stalling that's been happening. And a lot of this, first and foremost, that plan would basically aid American workers. It would help our overall infrastructure as a country, help healthcare, all things that regular people would greatly benefit from. But there's been a couple Democrats who have zero shame in blocking the progress of this happening because of their ties to big corporations. One of them being Kyrsten Sinema from Arizona. And she actually lost 5 of her advisory board members this last week as they resigned, saying she is a, quote, principal obstacle to progress, end quote. Of course, the honorable mention as well goes to Joe Manchin out of West Virginia, who's been a pain in the ass kind of from the start of Biden's administration. All that you're seeing, man, the floor is yours. What's kind of your perspective seeing as you're trying to be somebody who wants to get into all of this nonsense?
And the unfortunate part about it is that a lot of this is theater, right? But the other thing that people got to understand is that Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin are just the faces of all this obstruction that's going on. They aren't the only Democrats that feel the same way about it, but the other ones, they have a different way about going about it. And that's what people really have to understand is that what we're seeing now has been going on behind the scenes for decades and decades. If you ever wondered why we don't have nice things, it's because of that. Why you're seeing it in the public more so is because progressives have a little bit more power now. So now, like, they're not able to just keep everything back.
Sure. No, that's definitely a great point. I mean, it's no secret that politicians have welcomed some inspiration for how they decide to move in the political landscape. I mean, but I think one good thing I have to say, though, is that the social media era has kind of brought all of this to light. But on the flip side of that, the scary thing is that they still have no shame. Even though we're all watching and aware, it doesn't change the way that they move, at least when we're talking about these two people specifically. It almost makes them kind of want to double down on it because, like, this political clout they're getting.
No, 100%. And I mean, I think you're looking at Kirsten Sinema, where she's got people coming up to her. It don't matter if it's respectful. It don't matter if it's in bathroom, whatever the case may be. She just has no intentions on saying what it is that she wants to do. But we know what it is that she wants to do. And a lot of people accuse activists, coming up to her, people who are fighting and really hoping and putting a lot of faith in real immigration reform passing. Respectfully coming up to her, asking her, like, hey, why are you holding this up? And she not even giving them the time of day. The thing that we have to understand about that is that people like Kristen Sinema, people like Joe Manchin, their objective isn't to help people. Their objective is to line their pockets with all the corporate interests, and that's where a lot of the real problem is with that money.
Sure, yeah, 100%. It's definitely a very sad cycle that we're seeing. Okay, so I mean, you mentioned immigration reform, and let's kind of talk about one of the things that we saw this last week as Biden is going to be reinstating a Trump policy regarding those migrating from the Mexican border. Now, this is, of course, Trump's Remain in Mexico policy, which has been known as a migrant protection protocol. Now, even though Biden, promised us that he was going to end this on his campaign trail, his administration is now planning to restart it as soon as next month. And just to be completely transparent, they are saying that Biden had no choice in this, that the policy was kind of pushed back by a federal judge that was appointed by Trump and ordered Biden and his administration to reinstate it. That is what his team is saying. This isn't a reflection of his beliefs. So seeing that, though, I mean, what are your feelings on this?
Seeing that, again, it makes me go back to the organizer that was trying to empathize with Kristen Sinema. And what we have to really start seeing this as is when you have communities that are heavily impacted by these policies, people don't see it as violence against those communities, but it's really a matter, and a lot of times, of life and death. So people were more mad about the fact that, she got, chased to a bathroom, not even talking about the fact that she ran in there to get away from them because they were trying to talk to her and have a real conversation. Right. But then when they have family that they can't go see in Mexico or wherever country they're coming from, or they can't work because of their immigration status or drive and things like that, what kind of quality of life can somebody have? Yeah. The other thing with the immigration thing, Biden is, saying that, this isn't a part of my policy and things that I'm doing, but he's been strongly enforcing Title 42 and deporting many, many Haitian immigrants from the border. So this is really lock in step with what U.S. foreign policy has been for decades and decades. So I think people should really see through that and also recognize that Biden is the president. He has both sides of Congress, the Senate and the House on his side. And we can't keep on going for this excuse that my hands are tied.
Right. It kind of seems like that's his go-to thing whenever he does something that is against everything he campaigned on. And to me, it's obvious to see that's BS because let's say his hand was forced in this. Just because his hand was forced in it doesn't mean he can't go out there and give a scathing review of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's just not happening.
Same thing with the parliamentarian. Mm-hmm. That is just someone who appointed that they just advises you what to do. You can literally just say, thank you for your opinion. Mm-hmm. We're going to do this instead. The Bush administration actually did that while they were trying to ramp up after 9/11 for war. And they fired the parliamentarian so that they could put somebody in to get something done that they wanted to get done. So Biden can do it.
Right. I mean, look at Trump. He was the blueprint for doing whatever the hell he felt like doing. You know what I'm saying? Like it's there, and Biden could be doing the same thing if he wasn't sitting here trying to play this centrist game of making everybody happy. To me, it's sad because he's ignoring the fact that it's very clear that Republicans, the modern age Republicans, don't actually care about improving the country. Right. They care about retaining power. And their viewpoint is the only way to retain this power is to double down on like this this Trumpian kind of thought process, So that's all that they're dedicated to, is staying in office and collecting more money. So with that being seen, I don't understand why this man is not taking more of an aggressive approach. It just doesn't make sense.
And that's the thing about it too, is that if he doesn't do what he says that he campaigned on doing, the basic people who are supposed to be energized to vote back in the midterms and in the 2024 election, you're losing them. And then on the other flip side of it, then the right, they're calling you, leftist, socialist, all these different things. So you lose on both ends. So what you went on is you do what you campaigned on. That's it. Right. You don't make any excuses for not getting it done.
Yeah, 100%. And also Kamala Harris has to take some of this kind of, backlash as well, because it's like she's been non-existent, I feel like, in hearing her speak on anything. But she also is the one that told immigrants, stay where you are. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't come here. And it's sad, as somebody who, is a byproduct of at least, her, I think her mother's the Indian side. So she's a product of an immigrant parent, and for her to be speaking that way, but also for someone that campaigned upon sort of being the face of, now you have the representation. There's a woman of color in office. I'm going to be fighting for you guys. It's like, bro, where is she? You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't see her the way that I feel like we should be, the way we were being promised.
Yeah, and you 100% correct on that. And I think what people are starting to see more and more is that this is what government looks like all the time. Which is why we need to start, building some alternatives and, building the infrastructure outside of these systems that are definitely going to support people. Because even with me running for Congress, I understand that electoral politics can only go but so far. I see it as a way of harm reduction, because there are policies in there, child tax credit, different things that have been instituted now that are helping a lot of families. Yeah. Right. But that's not going to be the end all be all, as you're seeing right now. So we need a little bit more, and that means we got to build some more community up.
Right. At 110%. And also, it's scary to think of what this next presidential election is going to look like. Right. As it goes right now, ain't going to be too many people buying into whatever the Democrats are selling. So we might be back in Trump land again for all we know.
Maybe we can get you running, Dramos.
Yeah. At this point, man, anything might be a step up for us. Now, last thing I want to touch on with you that I want to commend you for was the you advocating so heavily for Mona Rodriguez, who was the girl that was killed by the school police resource officer, the 18-year-old girl that was shot and killed in California as she was in the passenger seat of a car that was driving away. And where were you on, like at a school board meeting, at a town hall? What were you speaking on? I saw it on your Instagram.
Oh yeah, so there was a school board meeting. And it wasn't on the agenda, but community showed up regardless to speak on that item, just because that's what all of the organizers that have been pushing to remove the guns from the schools, because this is the type of tragedy that you open yourself up to when you involve that element in it. I'm not sure if your listeners know the details of it, but there was a fight outside of the school, Milliken in Long Beach. There was a school, safety officer that was there, tried to break up the fight. The fight was broken up. Mona and her boyfriend and her boyfriend's brother got into the car, started driving away for no apparent reason. The officer unloads in the car, shoots Mona in the head. She ends up dying, has a months-old baby that she's leaving behind, family, friends that she's leaving behind. And the question is, for what? If you don't, like me personally, I work as a personal attendant for individuals who are autistic, right? Mm-hmm. I can't hit my clients. It's illegal. If there's any type of restraining, you have to restrain people without, injuring them. So this notion that things can't be de-escalated without weapons is, people do it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's scary to think that somebody who's basically like a rent-a-cop is carrying around a gun around kids. You know what I'm saying? Because like these are teenagers, man. Like why do you have a gun there? You know what I'm saying? And that doesn't make any sense. But also to me, I'm a bit upset because I feel like this hasn't gotten the national coverage or at least the national outrage that it deserves. I think oftentimes, the Latin voices end up not, being cutting through as well as, I think the Black community has done an amazing job at organizing and being angry and displaying that anger, rightfully so, but sadly as Latinos, we haven't done that. And at the same time, I don't think we've been given a reason to kind of see that anybody actually gives a damn about us. You know what I'm saying? And so it's frustrating on so many levels. Of also just, man, the lack of coverage. Like this is such an egregious incident. Right. Like it makes no sense whatsoever.
The video's even worse.
Right, and that's what I mean. Nobody can say there's no. It's not as bad because we don't have the same visual element of like a George Floyd. Like no, there is a video, and this was a kid driving. Like it just doesn't. She wasn't even being detained. You know what I'm saying? It makes no sense whatsoever.
Driving away, and then again, she's not the only one. Specifically, I was helping a family. Marco Vasquez Jr. Brother, he was actually killed late 2019, and he was having a mental health crisis. And he was shot by police. And you're 100% right. And I'm glad that you made that point, is that whenever it's in the Latin community, it's not in the news media as much, right? And even at times too, I think that can create some tension between different communities in terms of why is this community getting more attention than our community, which is why I feel like it's important that we have to stand together in solidarity and uplift all these cases, because a lot of things people don't realize is that, or people don't really connect, police kill everybody, right? Black, it doesn't matter. Like, I mean, even if you go on like pure numbers, more white people get killed. And a lot of times people that come from that community will say, oh, well, then why are you complaining? On the flip side of that, I'm saying, why aren't you mad?
Right.
So many people are getting killed. There's so many people are getting killed. So that's what we really need to start doing, is realizing how interrelated all these issues are and really come together and uplift these stories.
Yeah. And for clarification, the reason why it's such a big deal when it comes to, Black people and Latin people, we are a smaller percentage of the population. So it obviously justifiably so, white people are gonna get killed at, in larger numbers. But when you break it down statistically by population, the percentage rate of us being killed is far outnumbers, the white community. I was looking at something.
But we mad already. Y'all need to be mad with us. That's the thing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, that's a great point as well. Everybody should be angry about this. You know what I mean? The lack of value for human life, you know what I'm saying, is the greater issue. So let's quickly kind of dive into now your whole campaign and everything that you're working on right now. I mean, in your area, for what you're doing, what are kind of like maybe the 3 top things that you're really campaigning behind and that you want to try and get done if elected to office? Well,
we're in California. So, one thing that's huge out here is the homelessness issue. The unhoused community is something that's growing. And then in addition to that, the first-time home buyers. I know you just bought a home. Salute to that. A lot of people can't do that out here. People can't afford it. They can't afford to buy a home. They can't afford rent. So it's a huge issue out here. The other thing that's another issue too is the wages. People can't afford to live out here too. It's becoming to where life is too expensive, right? To live, to enjoy. And that's why in correlation to that, you're seeing a lot more strikes happening because people are, a lot of what we talked about during the pandemic is that it gave us time to really look at the landscape and ask ourselves, how exactly do I want to live my life? Right. And then I think, when you tie in addition to that, public safety, like we're talking about right now, is a huge, huge issue out here as well, because we can't continue to live like this. And that's why for the campaign, the question that I'm asking everybody is the same question Dr. King asked in 1968, which is, where do we go from here? Chaos or community, right?
Sure.
Because we got two options, and we're not going to go back to whatever they told us was normal, right?
Right.
But so we're going to have to make a decision how we're going to go and how we're going to come together going forward. And it has to be community centered.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love what you're talking about workers, because people will love to kind of like criticize, oh, you want to get paid? You know, you're not the billionaire ideal person behind the company. It's like, yo, nobody's asking for that. But if Jeff Bezos could just be randomly sending rockets off into space for no damn reason, and I'm having trouble working full time paying my bills, there is something wrong with that. And especially companies like that love to tell you and like send emails out like, yo, we crushed it last quarter, record-breaking numbers this last quarter, and it's all thanks to you. And then it's like, all right, if it's all thanks to me, no bonus whatsoever, no sort of, thank you. There's like nothing except for a verbal thank you. Thanks so much for all of your hard work. Well, no, that thank you is not going to pay my rent. That thank you is not going to put food on the table. And while y'all are getting richer, giving yourselves bonuses, you are sitting here, making us work for menial wages and fighting against us being able to unionize so that we can advocate for ourselves.
Man, drop the mic. Yeah, we don't. Yeah, it's not enough to give us the Starbucks gift cards or the pizza days for employee.
Right.
It's not. That's not going to cut it. And I think people really have to look at it like this. If me working for you allows you to have the business that you have to be able to take care of your family, why is it that I can't be able to support my family at the same time? That's the question people got to start asking, is why can one person eat but the other person can't? When we're in the richest country in the world, we have enough for everybody to eat. Biden just recently, they're cutting out the free community college out of the Build Back Better plan. But on Tuesday, they just voted to add another $25 billion to the Pentagon budget after leaving Afghanistan. Right. It's not a matter of whether we can or can't do it, but that's why I say, where do we go from here? Because where we go from here, we have to really restructure what's the priorities in our country. That's what we really have to do. And what's more important, these corporations and, getting more money for the millionaire and the billionaire class, or really taking time to invest in people before it's nothing but chaos left.
Yeah, no, that's a great fact, and it's a great note to end on. I mean, so anybody who wants to support your campaign, man, where can they go do that? Check out more information on you, because we're actually based out of LA, so the TV station is based out of LA. So you're gonna get some people who might want to check out.
Oh, that's love. That's love. Yeah, I mean, anybody that wants to support or get involved in the campaign, you can go to Sylvester for Congress, FOR, SylvesterForCongress.com. We need volunteers. We really need to get out into the community and connect with people. We need phone bank, text bank. That's one way to get on Instagram, SJR2022, the same handle, also on Twitter. And then, as everybody knows, it's not something that we like to ask for, but only way we're going to get the message out is if we have the funds to do it, because we're going up against an 18-year incumbent that has $1 million war chest. And, the second that she feels threatened, they're going to dump another $1 million into it. Right. So we got to, we don't have to, match that, because we're going to match that with our ground power. But at the end of the day, we're going to need people. So those are definitely the areas where we can get people involved and connect and then get them mobilized.
I love it, bro. Listen, Sylvester, I'm proud of you, bro. I'm proud of the work that you're doing, man. And keep on going, man. Anything you need from me, you always know it's an open door. You just hit me up.
Man, stop it. I'm happy that you in LA.
Yeah, well, I'm not in LA. I have stayed over here on the East Coast, but everybody else behind the scenes.
I said, whoa, okay, this brother got a second home. I said, okay.
Nah, we ain't there yet. I'm still over here on the East Coast, man.
All right, brother. All love.
Absolutely, my bro. Man, big shout out to my guy, Sylvester Ani Jr. for hopping on. I'm just so proud to see somebody's growth like that. To not only have an opinion, but then decide that they wanted to take matters into their own hands and take a stance and try and be, somebody who can make change in this country. And it's incredible to see. What he was alluding to was, I used to do these Instagram lives every day during the quarantine, and he was one of the people who would tune in on a regular basis and chime in on the conversation. So his growth over the last year is incredible. I'm so proud to see all that he's doing. If you are in Los Angeles, in California, please make sure you check out his campaign and the things that he's talking about He's definitely one of the good ones for sure. Now, with that said, let's end on some more positivity before we get out of here. And of course, we do that in the form of a positive quote, as we always do. And actually, I'm going to borrow this from Sylvester, that speech that he was giving at that school board meeting that I was talking about on his Instagram page. He quoted the late, great Martin Luther King Jr. and said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." And I absolutely love that quote. And to me, it touches me because Sylvester is doing exactly what I've been trying to hopefully, encourage people to do. And that is to take a stance against, all of the wrong that's happening, regardless if it's in your community or not. And I love the fact that he's, decided to advocate for the Latin community in a case like Mona Rodriguez, being just horrendously killed for no reason whatsoever. I love that he's taking that stance and really making sure that, when we talk about things like Black and brown, like that it actually matters, that people actually do, want to band together. And I think that messaging that he's putting out there of all of us coming together, even talking about white people getting killed by police, like we should all be angry about things like that, regardless of our race or our upbringing. And I just love that stance, that quote in particular, regardless if it's something that affects you, anybody being harmed, any sort of injustice that happens in this world, in this country, deserves to be fought against. And we should all care about things, regardless of if it's in our own backyard or not. Now, with that said, thank y'all for tuning into another episode of the show. I appreciate y'all. Of course, we'll be back with a brand new episode next week. Until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.